You're lying!
The Count of Monte Cristo finally gets his revenge for the theft of his wife. Fernand falls step by step into his meticulously laid trap, ultimately losing everything and meeting a miserable end. Meanwhile, the Count's other two enemies are about to face an even more brutal fate. Danglars is sweating bullets as the land options for his railway project are about to expire. He desperately seeks the Count's help, with the land purchase costing a whopping 9 million francs, way more than he'd bargained for. He begs the Count to pony up his 5 million franc investment early. Edmond reminds him that, as per their agreement, he'll only pay up after Danglars' daughter gets engaged to Count Spada. Danglars looks like he's seen a ghost. With Fernand 6 feet under, he has no allies left in the government. If this land deal falls through, the government will yank his license. Edmond tells him to chill out, just throw the engagement party ASAP, and everything will be smooth sailing. He and Spada will wire the 5 million francs to Danglars' bank right after. Edmond's rock-solid promise has Danglars breathing easy again, and he sets the engagement date for Thursday. Little does he know, Edmond has a doozy of a surprise lined up for him that day. Meanwhile, Spada, following Edmond's orders, shows up at Danglars' place with 4 letters of recommendation. With these, Eugenia can land gigs at Rome's top 4 opera houses. Eugenia is over the moon. She's been dying for a chance like this, but her face falls when she remembers her dad won't let her perform on stage. Spada gives her a sly smile, hinting that once in Rome, Danglars can't call the shots anymore.
And I shall see you at the signing of the so-called marriage contract on Thursday, if you have not already left for Rome. That is.
He drops that cryptic line and splits. Eugenia catches his drift. Spada is nudging her to ditch the wedding. This is right up her alley, considering she's head over heels for Louise. Plus, in Rome, she can flex her opera chops, a dream come true for her and Louise. The day before the engagement, Edmond meets up with Mercedes. He tips her off to withdraw all of Fernand's cash from Danglars' bank pronto, cause Danglars is about to go belly up. Mercedes figures out Danglars is Edmond's next target and warns him he's playing with people's lives.
They played with mine.
Mercedes doesn't know if she should hate Edmond. His revenge is justified, but it's also wrecked her family. With mixed emotions, she cautions Edmond that he's been consumed by vengeance, but Edmond sees his survival and newfound wealth as divine providence for his revenge.
What is your understanding of providence?
In the overall sense, that destiny will ensure justice.
So you are the instrument of destiny.
The Count doesn't answer, just turns and heads to the newspaper office. He hands over evidence of Danglars and Interior Ministry Secretary Debray's stock market manipulation to the editor. By comparing 3 years of Paris Stock Exchange records with Danglars' personal bank statements, he's uncovered a pattern. Every time Danglars makes a bid withdrawal, his wife makes a killing on some stock that day, which doubles in value within days. All this started after Debray joined the Interior Ministry. Edmond insists the editor publish all the evidence but keep the source under wraps. He makes a point of mentioning he has copies that are already with the police, knowing the editor and Debray are tight. On engagement day, the Danglars family is on cloud 9, blissfully unaware of the shitstorm about to hit. Danglars reminds the two Counts to have their 5 million franc checks ready. Edmond and Spada exchange knowing looks, both sporting mischievous grins. Meanwhile, Eugenia is putting the finishing touches on her getaway plan. Louise has passports and a carriage ready. They'll pose as siblings on a trip. Eugenia chops off her long hair, a symbol of her constraints and societal expectations. She's finally free to be herself and chase her dreams.
I love it.
Suddenly, Debray bursts in, panicked, to tell Madame Danglars their stock market scam is busted wide open. He demands his cut of the profits so he can skip town. But when Madame Danglars opens the money box, she's horrified to find all her savings have vanished into thin air. As they're freaking out, the engagement ceremony kicks off, forcing them back to the living room. Danglars gives his speech with a big smile, thinking he's on easy street. But when it comes time to sign the marriage contract, Eugenia is missing. Danglars, embarrassed as hell, sends his wife to check on her. No matter how much she knocks, the room stays silent. Danglars, at his wit's end, busts down the door, only to find the room empty. Eugenia and Louise have already flown the coupe through the window and are about to hop on a carriage to Rome. Eugenia has swiped Madame Danglars and Debray's cash for their getaway. All her life, Eugenia's parents have controlled everything, but now she's finally found the guts to ditch society's expectations and chase her dreams with her true love. Spada picks up the hair from the floor, demanding answers from Danglars. Before Danglars can stammer out an explanation, the cops barge in with arrest warrants.
Get out of my house!
The police chief coldly reads out the charges of insider trading and stock manipulation, then starts making arrests.
Do something, you stupid fool! Make Ethan, stop!
Danglars can only be taken away in a dejected manner by the police with Debray. Watching this go down, Edmund feels a rush of satisfaction. He was also arrested by the police in despair 15 years ago, and Danglars, one of the culprits, now suffered the same fate. But this isn't enough to quench Edmund's hatred. He's determined to break Danglars' spirit completely. Before long, Danglars receives 2 letters in jail. The first is the incriminating letter he and Fernand had written years ago. The second is from Edmund, detailing how Danglars, Fernand, and Villerfort had framed him and thrown him in the slammer for 15 years.
The same amount of time I believe you will spend in a forced prison for crimes you actually committed. Unlike mine, which were entirely fabricated. I wish you a miserable stay there.
When he sees the signature, the Count of Monte Cristo, Danglars finally realizes that he has been played around by Edmund. He completely loses it.
You bastard. You damn bastard.
With Danglars dealt with, Edmund sets his sights on Villerfort for the final act of his revenge. Taking advantage of Villerfort's distress over his daughter Valentine's arrest, Edmund pays him a visit. He points out that Valentine's unlikely to have killed her close grandmother, and certainly wouldn't be dumb enough to leave poison tea in the pot. He then mentions that Madame Villerfort had been absent for some time at the last dinner. Villerfort remembers it clearly. Edmund drops a bombshell, saying Madame Villerfort swiped a vial of poison from his lab, and Haiti witnessed the whole thing. Villerfort's floored, his mood hitting rock bottom. At dinner, Villerfort casually mentions to his wife that he's postponed Valentine's trial. Madame Villerfort freaks out, demanding to know why. Villerfort says the evidence is shaky and he's uncovered some new leads. His wife's face flashes with panic before she composes herself, reminding him that the cops haven't searched Valentine's room yet. Villerfort's heart sinks even further, catching the hint in his wife's words. The next day, while his wife's out, Villerfort sneaks back into Valentine's room. Sure enough, he finds the poison vial in a drawer, confirming his suspicions. He knows for a fact it wasn't there when he searched the room on the day of Valentine's arrest. Heavy-hearted, Villerfort visits Valentine in jail. He's torn up inside, but he has to choose between his daughter and his wife. Finally, he confronts his wife with the vial, saying he knows the truth. Madame Villerfort still tries to pin it on Valentine. Seeing no remorse, Villerfort coldly tells her there's an eyewitness to her theft of the poison. Madame Villerfort is speechless, realizing the jig is up.
What are you going to do?
Same as I did with Valentine.
No one is above the law.
She begs for mercy, but Villerfort's already dead inside. Yet Villerfort's misfortunes aren't over. Tomorrow, he'll be presiding over Gaston's trial for killing the inspector, and Edmund has a knockout punch ready for the courtroom. He sends Jacopo to bring the midwife back to Paris. The next day, Gaston's trial is going smoothly. The old lady who witnessed the crime testifies, and Gaston confesses on the spot. Villerfort, still wrapped up in his own troubles, seems distracted. Just as the judge is about to pass sentence, the assistant judge calls for a witness who might provide mitigating circumstances. When the witness enters, Villerfort's shocked. It's Gaston's foster mother, the midwife Villerfort's been searching for. The judge asks about Gaston's birth parents.
The father was Monsieur Villerfort, the chief prosecutor, that man sitting there.
Villerfort, furious, accuses her of lying and demands she be thrown out, but the judge overrules him. The midwife spills the beans about seeing Villerfort bury the baby and how she dug him up and raised him. The courtroom erupts in chaos, and even Villerfort's stunned. He's just now realizing that the murderer he's prosecuting is his own son. Father and son recognize each other in this cruel, ironic twist of fate. Edmund, sitting in the gallery, watches with amusement as Villerfort's face turns to stone. Faced with the judge's questions, Villerfort stumbles over his words, his mind in complete disarray.
As I said, no one is above the law.
Villerfort leaves the courtroom in a daze, wandering the streets like a lost soul. As a prosecutor, he's just sent his own son to jail, and now he'll have to send his wife to the guillotine. It doesn't get much worse than that. But when he gets home, an even more horrific fate awaits him. His wife has committed suicide out of fear of punishment, taking their young son with her. She used the very poison she'd stolen from Edmund. This final blow shatters what's left of Villerfort's sanity.
Help! Someone help me!
Edmund, who has followed him home, is struck speechless by the scene. He'd planned to show Villerfort the incriminating letter as a final psychological blow, but now it seems unnecessary. Edmund's grand revenge plan is finally complete after 15 years, but he doesn't feel the satisfaction or relief he'd expected. While punishing his enemies, he's also hurt many innocent people. Edmund has finally shed his hatred, only to be burdened with guilt. Father Faria had warned him, if you seek revenge, dig 2 graves. Only now does he fully grasp the weight of those words. Back home, Edmund calls for Jacopo, thanking him for his unwavering support. Though illiterate, Jacopo's loyalty and honesty far surpass the high society folks who preach morality. Their agreement is fulfilled, and it's time to part ways. Edmund generously gives Jacopo all the carriages and horses, promising to send him money every year until his death.
Well, don't die too soon.
Edmund always pays his debts, both good and bad. As merciless as he is to his enemies, he never shortchanges those who help him. With everything settled, Edmund returns to his hometown, visiting his father's grave. He finds fresh flowers. He knows Mercedes has been there. On the beach, filled with countless happy memories, he sees that familiar figure. 15 years ago, Mercedes would stand there every day, just like now, gazing across the sea towards the prison that had held Edmund. Their love, which should have blossomed brilliantly, had withered due to the selfish whims of others. If people don't have a fear of good and evil, they can easily become the creator of disasters and tragedies. Edmund decides to embark on a solo journey, seeking inner peace as Catullus had wished for him. Revenge might erase hatred, but it can't heal a wounded heart.
Love can heal.